So I think this is going to come up pretty quickly as we dive into Tim Walz. Everyone's been talking a lot about like how great his record has been as governor, and I think the main criticism that is going to come up is him calling in the National Guard during the uprising after George Floyd was killed. Tim Walz did do this, and I want to talk about what was going on and why he did it. So first of all, our mayor at the time, I lived in Minneapolis while this was happening. Our mayor at the time was shitting the bed. Shitting the bed. He was doing a terrible job. Thing two was that a whole bunch of like Proud Boys and other like right-wing extremists had come to town in order to start a race war. And when I heard these reports, I was like, that sounds like some bullshit. But like, we prosecuted people. Like, those were the people who ended up getting jail time for this were like white supremacists. And it was these white supremacists that were causing most of the property damage. And I know that a lot of, like think pieces came out and there was a lot of like in defense of looting and things like that. And I'm not there to discourage any of that discourse or say like, no, that's incorrect. But the reality on the ground was that it was not Black citizens destroying people's small businesses. It was white supremacists who wanted the protests to look worse, to be worse. The other thing was that like the tension had grown so bad with protesters and the police that the police had no business being there anymore. And that was like an interaction that needed to stop. Like 2 different people lost eyes because of the Minneapolis Police Department handling this. Like it was so bad. Anyway, it wasn't perfect. I'm not going to say that Tim Walz did the perfect thing. I don't know that there was a perfect solution in that situation. But as like the various court cases happened subsequently, and like our local Minnesota reformer reported on this like the whole time, like it was white supremacists that got put in jail for property damage. It was not like average Black citizens. And they weren't even from here. They were from out of state. And like that was the most bananas thing to me. So like that was totally like a rumor that floated around, but it was accurate. That is something that really happened. Those individuals were prosecuted successfully. They may still be in prison. And again, this is not an endorsement of using prison as a way to punish people. I'm an abolitionist. This is me talking about the systems that currently exist, working to their best ability. This is the best that system can do, and it did it. Also, it sucked. All of this sucked to have the National Guard on every street corner in my neighborhood while I was trying to like go get groceries with my initially I was 9 months pregnant, which is why I didn't actually attend the protest because I didn't want to go into labor because of being tear gassed. And then in the like couple of weeks after, they still they were on every corner in the downtown core, even though that's not where the protests were happening. It sucked. And I'm not saying this is something that I am endorsing. I am giving context to what was going on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know who she is, shouts out to Clarity Beardy on TikTok. She is originally from Minnesota. She's originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm going to talk about Tim Walsh. And by the way, Kamala Harris picked Tim Walsh as her running mate in the Democratic ticket. Now, his first term as governor, we wanted to know how he felt about the George Floyd protest because this is extremely important, especially in the Black community. Because according to her, and she said that automatically after George Floyd was unalive, he automatically sent National Guards to both Minneapolis and St. Paul. And already already sent their National Guards to these cities because I think they expected that this is about to happen, and it did. But it also, according to her, that it's not local black residents that been rioting. It was white supremacists. It was basically people from out of state that did this, that causing riots and looting and everything else. So with Tim Walsh is now Kamala Harris's running mate, a lot of people are going to question why did you send the National Guard way before, after this is after George Floyd has passed away. Automatically sending National Guards in both Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities. So this is the unanswered question though. So, and you see what she said, that it was not black citizens, not black Minneapolis citizens or black St. Paul citizens that was involved in these riots. It's basically the Proud Boys and these white supremacists who not even from Minnesota that was involved in those riots, and that's why they were in jail, because they destroyed property in both Minneapolis and St. Paul. So we're going to go ahead and put this flame to the fire on Tim Walsh, because again, we wanted to know, how did you handle the George Floyd protests at the time? Because this is important. This was the first term you was, when you first term, serving as governor of Minnesota. But we really wanted to know, how did you basically handle the George Floyd protest? Because it's really odd that you're going to send National Guards, after George Floyd, was unalived by Derek Chauvin. This is weird. You automatically sending quote unquote National Guards, and the riots and hasn't even started yet. The protests haven't even begun yet, and you sending National Guards to the Twin Cities. Make it make sense. And it seems to me that he knew, or they knew, that the protests and the riots is going to happen. So they're not wasting any time of go say, okay, send the National Guards. Send the National Guards from both Minneapolis and St. Paul, because there's going to be some uprising happening. And then the governor, Tim Walsh, already knew that this is going to happen, and it's not even happening yet. So yeah, it's not black citizens that was involved in the riots in Minnesota during the George Floyd protest. It was the white supremacist groups that's been doing this, according to her. And again, we have to put Tim Walsh flames to the fire. Yes, he was a U.S. Army National Guard vet. Yes, he possibly, is called a progressive. But the question remains is that how, and people in the black community would ask the same question. How do you feel about the George Floyd protests back then? So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about this, because we really want to know, who is Tim Walsh? What does he stand for? And does he support the people in the black community, especially during the George Floyd protests? And does he support the anti black hate crime bill? Does he support reparations? We have to ask these questions. But even though he may not support that, but we still have to ask these questions. So y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments.